The history of coffee has been documented as early as the 10th century AD, where its use was largely restricted to the native beans of Ethiopia. Here, highlanders first farmed the coffee plant. However, it was the Arabs who saw the trading potential and sold the beans to northern Africa, where mass cultivation occurred. Early 14th century explorers, upon seeing coffee drinking in the Near East, labeled it as a drug, reporting the many medicinal benefits from consumption in the morning. From there, the beans entered the European and Indian marketers in the 17th century, where the popularity of the coffee became widespread as the wine of Arabia. Coffee was first introduced to Europe from Egypt through the Italian city of Venice, where a flourishing trade between the local businessmen and the Arabs enabled a large variety of commodities and goods to be imported. Merchants sold the coffee to the wealthy in Venice, charging them greatly for the privilege of drinking this exciting new beverage. Due to its Eastern roots, coffee in Italy was at the outset considered as sinful and deemed as an Islamic threat to Christianity. However, its popularity grew regardless, and Pope Clement, upon wisely sampling the heathen drink, was instantly enamored by the unique taste and aroma. Consequently, it was decided that far from religious conspiracy, it would be a great sin to banish such a delightful drink, and thus it was deemed Christian beverage, giving rise to the first Italian coffee house. Named for the beverage that it served, the first cafe in Venice opened around 1683 and soon became synonymous with comfortable atmosphere, conversation, and good food, this adding romance and sophistication to the coffee experience. Historically, most Italian coffee is brewed strong and fast in the form of espresso, which is perhaps why this country developed various milk-based coffees such as the cappuccino and latte. The incentive to develop this type of coffee was not due to its superior taste, but a shrewd 18th century Italian businessman who sought to reduce the time his workers spent on their morning coffee break. Thus, a lever-driven machine was developed to force water through tightly packed ground coffee, incidentally creating a stronger, more aromatic brew. Although the strong association between Italy and coffee can be deemed somewhat of a misnomer, as only humble amounts are grown in this country, early Italian culture welcomed the drink as if it were their own and did much more to advance its status of the beverage worldwide. The influence Italians have made on coffee throughout the world has continued from the 17th century through the tradition of high-quality espresso coffee, this inspiring the proliferation of retail coffee giants and specialty coffee roasters encountered today. Here we see the constant recreation of the stylish, attractive, and relaxing environment of the Italian cafes and classic Italian renditions of coffee served. Nowadays, we can enjoy the same atmosphere and superior taste even at home, where domestic coffee machines serve genuine Italian espresso just as if it was served in a cafe.
In 1591, Venetian botanist and physician Prospero Alpini became the first to publish a description of the coffee plant in Europe. The first coffee house would appear soon after in Venice in 1645. But what was transformative about this period was that coffee was now being grown in Europe. Now, while this did not take hold permanently and forever to become a long-term area of growth for the continent, Italy still was one of the first to curate recipes around how to make coffee, commonly sold with warm milk and water in the famous coffee shops. The rhetorical piece we used to capture the essence of Italian commerce was a book by Louis Roberts, a director at the British East Indian Trading Company, where he published in 1638. The Merchant's Map of Commerce was the book of the time that vividly illustrated maps of merchantry, of trade rate exchanges, and of narratives in which countries were clearly illustrated and articulated their manners in which they traded, as well as the commodities in which they specialized. The Merchant's Map of Commerce was published along with other directors from the East Indian Trading Company, most notably the Mayor of London, Sir Maurice Abbott. This was a profound period of time, and especially expressing how powerful Italy had become on the global stage as a leader for the Western world and global commerce. It was from these writings, as well as the early history of coffee in Venice, such as these coffee shops and the early writings, that really set forth a precedence in which Italy became the center of global trade. It was this period in time in the early Renaissance that were not for Italy, it was unlikely that Europe would have reached the level of prominence that it did in surpassing the East in terms of global trade, culture, and politics. For it was the Italians that led further influence to their closest neighbors in Vienna and France and Britain. For they had set the precedents for global trade. It was these moments in time, and especially illustrated in the Merchant's Map of Commerce, that we begin to understand truly how influential Italy was on the global stage.